Parmenides, the ancient philosopher of Iliad, boldly declared something that shook the foundations of thought in his time: reality is one, whole and unchanging. To him, truth stood apart from appearances, illusions, and shifting perceptions. That may sound abstract, but when we reflect on our own lives, we realize that the very essence of this idea is something we wrestle with daily. How often do we let appearances dictate our choices? How often do we confuse opinion with fact, assumption with certainty, or wishful thinking with reality? Parmenides reminds us that reality never lies. It does not wear a mask, it does not shift to flatter our desires, and it cannot be bent by our emotions. It simply is. And if we want to rise to the challenges of life, to live with authenticity and power, we must ground ourselves in truth rather than illusion. Think about the nature of illusions in everyday life. Social media paints a glamorous picture of success, filtered and polished until it sparkles with artificial light. Advertisements seduce us into believing that fulfillment lies in the next purchase. Even people around us sometimes wear masks, pretending to be stronger, happier, or wealthier than they really are. These illusions can easily captivate us, and if we are not careful, they can lead us astray. But beneath all of these shifting images lies something permanent: the reality of who we are, the work we must do, and the truth that cannot be concealed. Just as Parmenides taught that what is real cannot not exist, we too must learn that the truth of our lives cannot be erased, no matter how cleverly we attempt to disguise it. Consider how dangerous illusions can be when left unchallenged. A student who convinces themselves that they don't need to study because they are naturally smart may eventually face the reality of failure. An entrepreneur who believes that shortcuts can replace hard work might enjoy brief success, but the truth of business demands dedication, planning, and perseverance. A person who hides behind excuses, blaming others, blaming fate, or blaming circumstances, may postpone accountability, but reality eventually confronts them. In each of these cases, illusions bring comfort for a time, but reality never lies. It shows up, firm and unyielding, waiting for us to face it. And yet, there is something deeply liberating about this. If reality never lies, then it becomes the most reliable ally we have. Imagine walking in a world where appearances constantly shift and deceive. Nothing would feel secure. But knowing that truth exists, and that it cannot be shaken, gives us solid ground to stand upon. When we align with truth, we align with strength. We become anchored, not swayed by every passing opinion, not defeated by every obstacle, because we know that truth sustains us in ways illusions never can. History itself offers countless examples of people who chose truth over illusion, even when it cost them. Think of scholars who challenged false beliefs and faced exile, yet their dedication to truth laid the groundwork for future generations. Think of leaders who refused to deceive their people with comforting lies, instead choosing to face reality with courage, guiding others to prepare, endure, and rise stronger. Their stories reveal that the cost of living in truth may be high, but the reward is far greater. It builds legacies that endure long after illusions fade. But let us bring this closer to home. Imagine a person who wants to transform their life, but clings to illusions. They believe success will come overnight, that others will hand them opportunities, that motivation will simply appear without effort. Compare them to someone who embraces reality, who acknowledges their weaknesses honestly, who accepts that growth is gradual, who knows that discipline is required daily. Which of these people is more likely to achieve lasting success? The answer is obvious. The one who faces truth, however difficult, is the one who builds something unbreakable. Reality may demand effort, patience, and courage, but it never lies. It will always reward those who live in an alignment with it. Even in personal relationships, illusions can be dangerous. Think of friendships built on pretenses, or love affairs sustained by false promises. At first, everything feels strong, but because it is built on appearances, eventually the foundation collapses. Contrast that with relationships rooted in honesty, where two people choose to see and accept each other as they truly are. Such connections may be harder to build, but they endure because they rest on reality, and in the end, reality never lies. It shows us who truly stands with us, who truly values us, and who is merely passing through. The lesson from Parmenides is not simply philosophical, it is deeply practical. Every time we choose to confront the truth instead of hiding behind illusions, we take a step toward real strength. Every time we resist the temptation of false appearances and ground ourselves in what is genuine, we grow more resilient. Life may sometimes feel uncertain, but in the middle of that uncertainty, truth stands still unchanging, waiting for us to recognize it. We can even see this principle in nature. The sun rises and sets each day. Seasons change in their order. Gravity pulls, whether we acknowledge it or not. These realities are steady and dependable. They remind us that reality does not shift with opinions, and that in our own lives, we can find peace in accepting what is. When we deny reality, we suffer. When we align with it, we thrive. Parmenides' insight into the difference between truth and illusion is a call to courage. It dares us to strip away the comfortable lies we tell ourselves, to silence the noise of misleading appearances, and to stand firm in what is real. It is not always easy. Truth can be uncomfortable, even painful. But it is always worth it, because illusions, however glittering, eventually fade while reality endures. The student, the worker, the dreamer, the leader, every one of us must make this choice daily. Will we live according to appearances, or will we live according to truth? When we choose truth, we choose freedom. We no longer waste energy maintaining illusions. We no longer chase after shadows. Instead, we stand tall, grounded in reality, and from that solid ground we build lives that last. That is why reality never lies, and that is why Parmenides' lesson still matters today. When we ground ourselves in truth, we discover clarity in chaos, we find courage to face what is, and we gain the strength to live authentically, just as the other lessons remind us. Parmenides taught that reality is eternal and indestructible, a truth that stands unmoved while everything else around us shifts. For him, what truly exists cannot be broken down, cannot be undone, cannot simply vanish into nothing. When we take this profound insight and bring it into our own lives, it becomes a lesson in the power of certainty. In a world where so much feels fragile, uncertain, and temporary, certainty becomes not just a philosophical ideal, but a source of resilience. We live in times where promises are broken, where trends change overnight, where opinions swing like a pendulum, and where the future often feels unpredictable. Yet, if we embrace what is firm, what is lasting, what is rooted in truth, we gain the strength to endure storms without being swept away by them. Think of how often we place our hope in things that are temporary. We chase after the latest success, we anchor our self-worth in the applause of others, or we tie our happiness to material possessions. But sooner or later, these things prove fragile. Fame fades. Money can be lost. Approval vanishes as quickly as it arrives. None of these can be called eternal. They are shifting shadows, not the steady substance of reality. Parmenides would remind us that if we want to live resilient lives, we must seek what cannot be destroyed. The power of certainty is found in aligning ourselves with what endures. This becomes especially clear when we think about challenges. Hardship comes for everyone. Loss, failure, disappointment, rejection. If we build our lives on things that crumble in the face of difficulty, then when challenges arrive, we fall apart. But if we anchor ourselves in what is indestructible, the values we hold, the truth we stand for, the strength of character we cultivate, then no storm can destroy us. Reality is not shaken by appearances, and when we stand on that reality, neither are we. Consider an example from history. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, faced endless turmoil. Wars at the borders of the empire, betrayals within his court, personal losses of family and children. Yet his writings and meditations reveal a man deeply grounded in certainty, not certainty about outcomes or comforts, but certainty about principles. He trusted that virtue, wisdom, and justice were eternal, and he anchored himself there. This allowed him to lead with resilience, even when everything around him was collapsing. He embodies the lesson of Parmenides. Strength comes not from chasing temporary illusions, but from standing on what cannot be destroyed. We can apply this lesson to our daily lives. Imagine two people facing the same setback, say, the loss of a job. One person's sense of identity is tied entirely to that job title. When it is stripped away, they collapse, because what they anchored their life upon was not lasting. The other person, however, may grieve, may feel the sting of loss, but their sense of self is rooted in something deeper. Their values, their ability to learn, their belief in perseverance. Even in the storm, they are not destroyed, because their foundation is certainty, not illusion. This is the resilience Parmenides points us toward. The power of certainty also challenges us to examine what we are truly committed to. Many people live without anchors, swayed by every new wave of opinion or every shift in circumstance. They believe one thing today, another thing tomorrow. Their lives are built on sand. But those who live with certainty are like builders who choose stone. They may take longer to build, the work may feel harder, but when the storms come, their foundation holds. And this is not about being rigid or stubborn. It is about being rooted. Flexibility can exist in small things, but in the core of who we are, certainty gives us the strength to endure. Certainty is also what fuels perseverance. When you know deep within that your goal matters, when you are certain that your principles are worth holding on to, you will keep moving even when obstacles arise. Athletes train for years with no guarantee of recognition, because they are certain that discipline and mastery matter. Scientists spend decades pursuing discoveries that may not be recognized in their lifetime, but they remain certain of the value of truth. Parents work tirelessly for their children with no applause, certain that love and sacrifice are worthwhile. This kind of certainty creates lives of resilience, because it does not depend on shifting appearances, but on what endures. We can see echoes of this truth in nature itself. The mountains stand unmoved for centuries while storms batter them. The oceans rise and fall with the tides, yet remain vast and eternal. Stars burn for billions of years, outlasting civilizations and empires. Nature itself whispers to us the lesson of Parmenides: what is real does not crumble, what is eternal does not vanish. If we build our lives upon this truth, we tap into a power that carries us beyond temporary struggles. But there is also a personal challenge in this teaching. Certainty is not something that magically appears. It is something we cultivate. It begins with self-knowledge, knowing what you truly believe, knowing what matters most to you, knowing the values that you will not betray. Once you discover these, you build your life upon them. And though appearances may tempt you, though illusions may offer comfort, you stay anchored in what is real. This is where strength comes from, not from clinging to what feels easy in the moment, but from embracing what is eternal. And yes, this requires courage. To live with certainty means rejecting illusions that many others chase. It may mean standing apart. It may mean enduring criticism. It may mean carrying a heavier burden in the short term. But the reward is freedom. When you live with certainty, you are no longer enslaved to the shifting opinions of others, nor are you broken by temporary losses. You find resilience because your life is built on what cannot be destroyed. This is why Parmenides' insight still matters. He wanted us to see that truth is not fragile, that reality does not bend, and that what truly exists cannot simply disappear. When we align our lives with this principle, we discover the power of certainty. We no longer waste our energy chasing shadows. Instead, we live with clarity, with strength, and with the resilience to endure whatever comes. Reality is eternal, and when we embrace it, we too touch eternity in our own lives. And just like the lessons of truth versus illusion, the courage to see beyond appearances, and the call to build our lives on solid ground, this reminder becomes a guiding force that aligns us with the other lessons waiting to be lived. In a world overflowing with voices, opinions, and constant noise, the challenge is not the lack of information, but the absence of clarity. Every day we are bombarded by thousands of messages. What success should look like, how happiness is defined, what goals are worth chasing. Social media feeds us endless images of polished lives. News cycles flood us with fear and urgency. Even the people around us often carry their own assumptions and expectations, projecting them onto us. The result is a kind of inner chaos, where it becomes difficult to know what is true and what is illusion, what is real and what is distraction. Parmenides, with his insistence that truth is one, whole, and unchanging, offers us a way forward: clarity in chaos. Clarity does not mean that life becomes simple or that difficulties vanish. Instead, it means learning to cut through confusion to see what truly matters. Imagine walking into a room filled with mirrors, each reflecting a slightly different image of you. Some distort, some flatter, some shrink, some stretch. If you believed every reflection, you would lose any sense of who you really are. This is what life can feel like when we are pulled by opinions, illusions, and appearances. Parmenides reminds us that behind all the reflections, there is something steady and unchanged, the truth of who we are and the reality of the world we live in. Clarity is the ability to hold on to that reality, even when everything around us tries to distract us. One way we can understand clarity is by looking at how easily confusion thrives in the absence of it. Think of someone who sets goals based purely on external pressure. They pursue a career because society calls it prestigious, not because it brings meaning. They buy possessions to keep up with others, not because they truly value them. They fill their lives with constant activity, not pausing to reflect whether those activities align with their inner truth. On the surface, they may appear successful, but deep down, they are restless and unfulfilled. Why? Because their lives are shaped by noise rather than by clarity. The chaos has disguised itself as achievement. Clarity is what cuts through such chaos. It is the stillness beneath the storm, the calm at the center of confusion. When we seek clarity, we stop chasing every distraction and instead focus on the essentials. This is not just philosophical, it is profoundly practical. A student overwhelmed by countless subjects and advice can find clarity by asking, what truly inspires me? What aligns with my abilities and values? An entrepreneur lost in the noise of trends can step back and ask, what problem am I genuinely passionate about solving? A person burdened by others' expectations can find clarity by reflecting, what kind of life do I want to live? Not just what life others want for me. These moments of clarity transform confusion into direction, noise into focus. We see the power of clarity in history as well. Consider the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who stood in a society filled with chaos, tribal divisions, idol worship, constant conflict. When revelation came to him, it was a moment of profound clarity, a voice that cut through centuries of confusion. His message was simple yet unshakable: oneness, truth, justice. It was clarity that gave him the strength to endure hostility, persecution, and hardship. Despite the noise of opposition, the clarity of his vision endured, reshaping history. His story is one among many that reveal how clarity, rooted in truth, empowers resilience in the face of chaos. Clarity also requires courage, because it often means seeing through comforting illusions. It is easier to believe a half-truth if it keeps us comfortable than to face reality in its full weight. But clarity demands honesty. It may hurt at first, but it liberates. A person who admits they are unhappy in their current path gains the clarity needed to change direction. A leader who recognizes the weaknesses of their strategy gains the clarity to adapt before failure comes. A family that acknowledges its struggles gains the clarity to heal. Illusions soothe us temporarily, but clarity heals us permanently. Think also about how clarity connects to resilience. When chaos surrounds you, it is clarity that tells you which direction to walk. Without it, you are like a traveler lost in the desert, chasing every mirage, exhausting yourself for nothing. With clarity, you know which way leads to water. This is why people who have clarity are often unshaken by noise. They do not need constant validation, nor do they collapse under pressure, because they are guided by something deeper than appearances. Clarity becomes their compass, allowing them to navigate storms without losing their way. But clarity does not appear automatically. It is cultivated through reflection, discipline, and sometimes struggle. Silence is one of its teachers, moments when we step back from the noise and ask ourselves what is real. Truth seeking is another, choosing to question illusions, to test appearances, to search for what holds firm beneath the surface. Even hardship can be a teacher of clarity. Loss strips away what is temporary, reminding us of what truly matters. Clarity is less about adding more into our lives, and more about removing the unnecessary, so that what remains is pure and unshakable. We can even see this in nature. The sky may be filled with clouds, storms, or dust, but beyond them, the sun remains constant. When the storm passes, the sky clears, and the sun is revealed again. Similarly, clarity is not about creating truth but about uncovering it, because reality, as Parmenides reminds us, never changes. The chaos may conceal it for a time, but when we cut through, we discover that truth was always there, steady and whole. Clarity is also contagious. A leader who has clarity of vision inspires others to follow. A teacher who has clarity of knowledge enlightens students who were lost in confusion. A parent who has clarity of values gives their children a compass to navigate the world. When one person finds clarity in the midst of chaos, their life becomes a light that guides others toward their own truth. Yet, clarity requires us to make choices. Will we continue to live in noise, letting ourselves be pulled in every direction, or will we choose to seek the stillness that reveals what is real? Will we build our lives on appearances, or will we anchor them in truth? The decision is ours, but the cost of avoiding clarity is high. Without it, we waste our strength chasing illusions. With it, we focus our energy on what truly matters. Parmenides' teaching is not merely a reminder to think deeply. It is a call to live differently. In a world that constantly shifts, clarity becomes our shield. In a life filled with distractions, clarity becomes our guide. In moments of doubt, clarity becomes our strength. And when we align with it, we find that it connects seamlessly with the other lessons: truth over illusion, the power of certainty, the courage to see beyond appearances, and the resolve to build life on solid ground. When Parmenides spoke of reality as unchanging and whole, he was not merely offering an abstract puzzle for philosophers to debate. He was pointing toward a truth that can transform the way we live. At the heart of his teaching is this: reality never lies. And when we stop deceiving ourselves, when we face life as it truly is instead of how we wish it to be, we tap into a wellspring of strength we may not have even known we possessed. The illusions we cling to can feel comforting, but they drain us, weaken us, and keep us from growing. The moment we shed them and look reality in the eye, however uncomfortable, we discover a power within that cannot be shaken. Self-deception is one of the most common struggles of the human condition. People convince themselves that they are fine when they are broken inside, that they are ready when they are not, that they are strong while secretly avoiding the truth of their weaknesses. This is not done out of malice but out of fear that if we admit the truth, we will collapse under its weight. Yet the opposite is what happens. Denying reality weakens us, but embracing it makes us stronger. Just as muscles grow by facing resistance, our inner strength grows when we stop running from reality. Think of a person who refuses to admit their mistakes. Each time something goes wrong, they blame others, they blame circumstances, they invent excuses. At first, this seems like self-protection, but over time, it becomes a trap. They cannot grow because they never face the truth. Compare that with someone who admits, "Yes, I failed, but I will learn." That person has faced reality, and because of that, they gain the strength to change, adapt, and try again. It is reality, not illusion, that fuels their resilience. History gives us countless examples of individuals who found their greatest strength in moments when they embraced reality. One of the clearest is Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second caliph of Islam. Known for his fierce honesty and uncompromising embrace of truth, Umar never shied away from facing reality, even when it was uncomfortable. When he realized he was wrong, he admitted it openly. This willingness to look reality in the eye did not weaken him. It made him one of the strongest and most respected leaders of his time. His courage to embrace truth over illusion inspired a whole civilization to rise in strength. That is the power of aligning with reality. But we do not need to look only to history. In our daily lives, the same lesson unfolds. A student who accepts that they do not yet understand a subject gains the strength to study harder, while one who hides behind denial remains stuck. A worker who admits they are unhappy in their current path gains the clarity to pursue something meaningful, while one who keeps deceiving themselves stays trapped in mediocrity. A family that acknowledges its struggles creates the possibility of healing, while one that hides behind appearances continues to fracture. In each case, illusions create weakness, but truth creates strength. Embracing reality also gives us resilience against pain. Life inevitably brings suffering, loss, disappointment, grief. Many people respond by denying it, by pretending that pain does not exist. Yet denial does not lessen pain, it prolongs it. Strength arises not from avoiding suffering, but from facing it head-on. Those who grieve openly eventually heal. Those who confront their struggles directly eventually overcome them. Pain is real, but when we embrace it instead of escaping it, it becomes a teacher that shapes us into stronger beings. Reality never lies, and when we walk with it, we walk with power. This does not mean reality is always harsh. It also means recognizing the truths we often ignore, the strength we already possess, the opportunities we already have, the blessings that are present, even in difficulty. Self-deception is not only about denying hardship, it is also about denying our own potential. People often tell themselves, "I cannot change, I cannot endure, I cannot rise." But reality may say otherwise. Reality reminds us that we have endured before, that we have risen after falls, that we carry more capacity for strength than we realize. Facing reality means embracing not only our limitations but also our hidden power. Nature offers us a beautiful reflection of this. A tree in winter does not pretend it is still in bloom. It strips itself bare, accepting reality, and in doing so, it conserves its energy, preparing for spring. If the tree tried to deceive itself, holding on to leaves that cannot survive, it would drain its strength. By embracing reality, the tree ensures its survival and renewal. In the same way, when we face life honestly, we conserve our strength for what matters and prepare ourselves for seasons of growth. It is also important to recognize that reality is a foundation for trust. When we live authentically, others can rely on us. A leader who hides the truth from their people may gain temporary approval. But when the truth emerges, trust collapses. A friend who avoids honesty may keep peace for a while, but eventually the bond breaks. But those who embrace reality and live by it create relationships built on solid ground. People may not always like the truth, but they will always respect it. Reality becomes the bedrock of integrity. Facing reality also empowers us to make better choices. Illusions cloud judgment, they lead us down paths that collapse beneath us. Reality gives us clarity. A person who admits they cannot afford luxury items avoids crippling debt. A community that acknowledges its problems begins the journey of repair. A society that looks honestly at injustice creates the possibility of reform. Illusions promise comfort, but they keep us stagnant. Reality may feel demanding, but it sets us free to move forward. Ultimately, the strength we gain from embracing reality is not loud or showy. It is quiet, steady, unshakable. It does not depend on applause or validation. It comes from knowing that you are aligned with what is real, with what is lasting, with what cannot be destroyed. And once you have that strength, you are no longer easily shaken by appearances. Criticism cannot break you, because you know the truth of your path. Setbacks cannot paralyze you, because you know the reality of your resilience. Temptations cannot mislead you, because you know the difference between illusion and substance. This is the gift Parmenides leaves us, the reminder that reality never lies, and that in it lies our greatest strength. The moment we stop deceiving ourselves and face life as it is, we discover a courage that illusions could never give. We realize that while illusions crumble, reality endures. And when we align ourselves with that endurance, we find the same resilience spoken of in the other lessons. The clarity to cut through chaos, the courage to see beyond appearances, and the wisdom to build our lives upon solid ground. Parmenides taught that truth is unchanging, but human beings often fear to face it. We prefer to live in the comfort of appearances, because appearances flatter us, soothe us, or distract us from what is difficult to acknowledge. Yet appearances are fragile. They crumble the moment reality confronts them. The courage to see beyond appearances is one of the greatest strengths a person can cultivate. It means daring to look deeper when others are content with the surface, to embrace truth even when it challenges comfort, and to live authentically rather than settling for illusions. Many people live at the level of appearances. They measure success by titles, wealth, or possessions. They measure happiness by smiles on photographs or approval from strangers. They measure strength by the ability to hide their weaknesses. But appearances cannot endure. Titles can be stripped away, wealth can vanish, and even the strongest mask eventually cracks. When reality rises, appearances scatter like dust. This is why Parmenides' lesson matters so deeply. Courage means going beyond the mask, because only truth can sustain us. Think of the countless examples in everyday life where appearances deceive. A person might seem popular but feel lonely when the crowds disperse. Another may seem confident yet battle insecurities in silence. A company may appear successful with glossy advertisements but be collapsing internally due to poor foundations. Appearances seduce us, but reality always emerges. It takes courage to say, "I will not be fooled by the surface. I will seek what lies beneath." That courage becomes the pathway to authenticity, resilience, and freedom. History offers stories of those who dared to look past appearances and were transformed. Take Abraham, the prophet who looked at the stars, the sun, and realized that though they appeared mighty, they were not ultimate. He had the courage to see beyond appearances, to reject idols that dazzled others, and to affirm truth that was deeper and lasting. His courage changed the course of history. It shows us that to embrace truth, we must first resist the temptation of surfaces. But courage is not only about rejecting illusions outside us, it is also about confronting illusions within us. We all create masks. We present versions of ourselves that are polished, confident, or content, while concealing our struggles. This is human, but it becomes dangerous when we begin to believe our own masks. True courage is to strip them away, to say, "This is who I am, and I will face the truth of it." That act of honesty is not weakness, it is strength. Because when we face truth, we no longer waste energy pretending. We live authentically, and authenticity empowers us to grow. The courage to see beyond appearances also protects us from disappointment. If we invest our hopes in surfaces, we will inevitably face collapse when the illusion shatters. But if we anchor ourselves in truth, we are never caught off guard. A wise person does not trust flattery but listens for sincerity. A resilient worker does not assume success is guaranteed, but faces the reality that effort and patience are required. A genuine friend does not settle for shallow gestures, but looks for loyalty tested by time. In each case, courage guards us from being deceived by appearances and prepares us to walk steadily on the path of truth. We see this courage in nature too. A seed lies beneath the soil, invisible, unremarkable. On the surface, it seems like nothing. But within, unseen reality is at work, life is forming. Appearances suggest barrenness, but truth reveals growth. Those who lack courage give up, believing only in what they can see. But those who look deeper, who trust what is real beneath the surface, witness the emergence of new life. This is how courage transforms vision. It teaches us not to be fooled by appearances, but to recognize truth hidden within. Yet, choosing to see beyond appearances often comes at a cost. It may mean standing apart from the crowd. It may mean refusing to accept what everyone else celebrates. It may even mean enduring criticism or isolation. But courage accepts that cost because it knows the reward is greater. To stand in truth is to stand in strength, while to live in illusions is to live in weakness. This is why true leaders, prophets, thinkers, and visionaries have always stood out. They chose courage over comfort, truth over appearances, and their legacies still endure. In our daily lives, the same choice arises. Do we settle for what looks good, or do we reach for what is real? Do we pretend to be happy for the approval of others, or do we seek genuine joy even if it is less glamorous? Do we chase quick recognition, or do we commit to lasting work that may not be immediately celebrated? The answers define not just our character, but also our destiny. Those who live for appearances may shine briefly, but their light fades quickly. Those who live for truth may shine quietly, but their light endures. The courage to see beyond appearances also liberates us from fear. Much of fear is born from illusions: fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of failure. But when we look deeper, we realize these are only surfaces. The judgment of others cannot define us. Rejection does not erase our worth. Failure does not end our story. Beneath the surface lies reality. Our value is unshaken, our potential remains, our resilience continues. Courage reveals this reality, and when we embrace it, fear loses its hold. It is also worth remembering that appearances are not only deceptive when they are attractive. They can also deceive when they appear hopeless. Sometimes life looks like failure, but reality may be preparing success. Sometimes it looks like darkness, but reality is cultivating growth. The courage to see beyond appearances means not only rejecting illusions of glamour, but also resisting illusions of despair. It is the courage to say, "Things may look broken now, but truth tells me they can be rebuilt. Things may appear dark, but reality reminds me that light is never gone." When we learn to see beyond appearances, we discover the kind of clarity, strength, and authenticity that cannot be shaken. We no longer waste energy chasing shadows or running from masks. We walk with courage into the heart of truth, and in that truth, we find resilience. This lesson ties seamlessly with the others. Just as embracing reality gives us inner strength, clarity cuts through chaos, and certainty anchors us, so too does courage empower us to rise above the surfaces of life and build on what is lasting. Reality never lies, and when we find the courage to see it, we live with the kind of authenticity that endures beyond all illusions. Parmenides reminds us that while illusions may dazzle, they never last. What is real endures. That is why one of the greatest lessons we can draw from him is the importance of building a life on solid ground. Appearances shift, circumstances change, fortunes rise and fall, but what is rooted in reality remains steady. When we build our lives on truth, on values, principles, and realities that cannot be destroyed, we create something lasting. When we build on illusions, however glamorous they appear, we create something fragile, destined to collapse. The choice is ours. Do we build on shifting sand or on solid rock? So many people, without realizing it, build their lives on unstable foundations. They equate their worth with how others see them, so when praise disappears, they feel worthless. They tie their identity to a job, title, or status, so when that position is gone, they feel lost. They chase fleeting pleasures, believing each new thrill will satisfy them, but the moment passes and emptiness returns. It feels safe in the short term, but it is a dangerous structure, like a house that looks beautiful on the outside yet is rotting underneath. When storms come, and storms always come, such houses cannot stand. Contrast this with someone who builds on solid ground. Their identity is not in appearances but in character. Their worth is not tied to status, but to who they are when no one is watching. Their goals are not about chasing approval, but about living in alignment with truth. Such a person may still face storms. They may lose money, relationships, or recognition, but the core of their life stands strong. Reality does not betray them. It holds them up. That is the kind of life Parmenides points us toward, a life anchored in what endures. We can see examples of this lesson throughout history. Consider the builders of great empires who thought their power would last forever. Many constructed monuments and palaces to prove their strength. Yet time exposed what was illusion. Empires crumbled, palaces turned to dust, and their names were forgotten. Now think of the lives built on truth. People whose legacies were not in gold or marble, but in principles. Their names endure. Their influence spreads even centuries later. Why? Because they built not on appearances but on reality. Their foundations were solid, and so their impact did not fade. Even in the natural world, the principle holds true. A tree with shallow roots may grow quickly, rising tall and impressive, but when a storm hits, it is uprooted easily. A tree with deep roots grows more slowly, less spectacular at first, but when the winds howl, it stands firm. Building a life on solid ground is like growing roots deep into truth. It may take more time, it may not shine immediately, but it creates resilience that appearances alone cannot provide. For each of us, the question is practical. What foundations are we building on? Are we building our lives on temporary illusions, things that can be taken from us? Or are we building on truths that endure no matter the season? A person who builds on the illusion of wealth may crumble in poverty, but one who builds on the truth of resilience can withstand loss. A person who builds on popularity may break when they are forgotten, but one who builds on the truth of integrity will be remembered for generations. Solid ground is not glamorous, but it is unshakable, and this solid ground is available to everyone. It is not about privilege, appearance, or luck. It is about choice. Every day we are offered chances to build on what is lasting or what is temporary. We can choose to speak truth even when lies seem easier. We can choose to work with discipline, even when shortcuts tempt us. We can choose to invest in relationships built on trust rather than superficial charm. Each small choice lays another stone in a foundation that will not collapse. It also requires patience. Illusions often give quick rewards. They shine immediately. They attract attention. They make us feel powerful for a moment. Building on reality is slower, quieter, less glamorous. But in the long run, illusions vanish and reality endures. The student who cheats on an exam may look successful for a moment, but their foundation is hollow. The one who studies diligently may seem slower, but when the time comes, their knowledge is real and their strength cannot be taken. This is the difference between living for appearances and living for truth. Building on solid ground also gives us peace. When your life is rooted in reality, you are not constantly afraid of being exposed. You do not live with the anxiety that your illusion will collapse. You can walk with confidence because you know what you stand on is true. There is freedom in authenticity. Pretending is exhausting, but truth is steady. The energy you once spent maintaining illusions can now be spent creating, loving, and growing. That is the gift of living on solid ground. This lesson is not only personal, it is also collective. Communities built on illusion, corruption, injustice, appearances of strength eventually fall apart. But communities built on truth, justice, trust, shared values, endure. Nations crumble when they deceive themselves about their weaknesses, but they thrive when they confront reality honestly and build policies rooted in truth. The same applies to families, teams, and societies. Solid ground sustains them, while illusions destroy them. Still, embracing this path requires courage. It is easier to chase appearances than to do the slow work of building truth. It is easier to decorate the walls of a shaky house than to rebuild its foundation. But appearances cannot save us when storms come. Courage is choosing the harder work now to avoid collapse later. It is choosing depth over glamour, truth over illusion, patience over haste. Those who make that choice discover that storms no longer frighten them, because their foundation cannot be shaken. This is why Parmenides' insight carries so much force even today. He insists that what is real cannot be destroyed, and if we align with that reality, our lives too become indestructible in their essence. We may face loss, we may suffer setbacks, but if our foundation is truth, we endure. Illusions may fall away, but what is built on reality remains. The wisdom of building on solid ground brings us back full circle to the other lessons. It is about rejecting illusion in favor of truth, finding the power of certainty, seeking clarity amid chaos, and drawing inner strength from reality. It is about having the courage to see beyond appearances and to live authentically. When all of these come together, they form a life unshaken by storms, a life rooted in what is real, a life that endures because reality never lies.